everyone, I'm Anna and this is the R5 Leather Workshop. And today we're going to be learning how to make a crossbody strap for your bags. The style that I like to make always contains a buckle where the adjustability happens through the buckle holes. So these are really easy to do. The reason I also really like these is you can use multiple lengths of leather to make them work. Let's get started on making this crossbody strap. So the first thing I want to talk about really quick is the leather that you're going to want to use when making straps of any kind, whether they're for a purse or whether they are for a crossbody strap. Generally, you want them to be at least about a 6-ounce leather. I personally prefer 6 ounce. Some people do tend to prefer closer to a 10. Most of the time when I buy strap leather, it's between a 6 and an 8. Usually there's a range when you're talking about the thickness of the leather. Also, a really quick little tip that I have learned, if you're just starting out and you don't want to keep buying individually pre-cut straps, which are kind of expensive comparatively for the amount and square footage of leather that you get, through Buckleguy, you can buy what are called bellies. And these are kind of, quote, unusable pieces of leather that they sell really cheap to get rid of them. And this is how I tend to get my straps. This was $25. This is a piece of brown Horween. It doesn't necessarily provide you with a ton of leather, and looking at this you can see it's not super usable, it's kind of awkward, but because they're so long, you can cut nice long straps from them. And even once I can no longer use this smaller section, because of the style that I use with the buckle, I can continue to cut more straps out of this and still be able to make quite a few full crossbody straps. I also tend to cut this, and some get used for handbags and other different lengths. But I found this is a really good way to not pay a fortune in straps. The other advantage of this is that you can get a thicker leather without having to buy a whole side. So I do find this is a really great way. You're gonna save money no matter how big a piece you get compared to just buying the straps. The next thing I want to talk about is cutting. So you can lay one of these out flat on your rotary mat and put a ruler down and cut across, and you have to kind of be really careful because you have to kind of scoot as you go and keep track of your measurements. Easier way in the long run is to buy one of these strap cutters. I really hated this thing when I first got it. It was awkward. There's kind of a raw blade right there on the end here, and I've cut myself on it multiple times, not being careful. So it's kind of an awkward piece of equipment, but once you get the hang of it, it is definitely the way to cut straps. So I'm a big fan of the strap cutter, but you gotta be safe. So I wanted to briefly show you how I cut the strap with the strap end cutter. I feel like it's really can be an awkward tool to use, but it really is helpful. Let's move on to the tools you're going to need for today's project. And supplies that you're going to need for today are some dye for your leather, some Tokonol, a punch of some type to punch holes. I have my rotary one here, but you can also use a hand punch. You're going to need a buckle, possibly some swivel snaps. This will be if you decide to want a removable strap from your bag, but if you don't need these, so those are optional. You're gonna need 6 total rivets. You're also gonna need a ruler, whatever one works for you, and of course the leather itself, and a rotary blade or X-Acto knife to cut parts of the leather, and potentially a strap-in punch. So now that we've cut our strap, we need to cut it into 2 segments. I generally, but not always, tend to want about a 60-inch strap. Sometimes when you pre-order them pre-cut, they can range from 55 to 60. Typically, always read what the length is on them when you order them, because in some cases you may actually need to order 2 if they're shorter. I believe Rocky Mountain Leather Supplies are only 40 inches, so I think you actually have to buy 2 if you want a long strap. So anyway, I do tend to cut my straps If I have a 60 inch, I tend to cut them at 24 inches and then hopefully also have a 36 inch piece. If I get a 55 one, I still cut the 24 and then just use the remainder for the other half. So we're gonna do that right now. I'm gonna cut this right now. This one is 24 and the other half, yeah, this one didn't come out. This one came out about 55, 56 inches. So we're gonna roll with it. But I do tend to not want them to be much smaller than that, than the 55 inches for the total strap length. So just bear that in mind. So I'm gonna lay this out here and I'm gonna cut it right here at the 24 with my rotary blade or your X-Acto knife, whatever works for you. So now we have this one, and then the second one is, like I said, about 31 inches. It'll totally work for today's project. So the next thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna want to curve off all the ends with your strap-in punch if you have one. If you don't have a strap-in punch, one of the things you can do is take something with a small circular end, lay it down, and then score it across to create that curve, or you can just cut it straight and just have a straight bottom to it if you want. I really do love curved ends. It's just my thing. I love them. They just make things look cleaner. So from here, I'm gonna use my strap-in punch. This is my 3/4 inch strap-in punch. And I'm gonna go right up to the edge to utilize as much of this as I can, especially because this strap is a little bit smaller than I would have liked. I really want to maximize every bit I have. So we're going to put that right there on the end. And then the other side. From here, you're going to want to decide if you want to finish the sides and the back of the strap. I do tend to always want to edge dye the straps. This all the way around. I don't like to do the back, typically because I'm worried about the color bleeding potentially on someone's skin. It's just less likely on the sides. You can do it and then you can do the back side and then tokenol it. But I don't tend to do the backs for some reason. You totally could. And then just make sure you put tokenol on the back side. That's the other thing about using these bellies, is that a lot of times the grain on the back can be loose. And if it's loose, you definitely need to tokenol the back side of these for sure. And then from here, you're gonna want to tokenol that edge and or the back if you want to do the back. So one of the things about using the tokenol and the dye, you really should let it kind of dry for a little bit before you move on. So while we're waiting for that, we're actually going to create our little belt loop. I think there's a name for it, but it's where you kind of tuck the belt buckle under to keep it secure. You're gonna need a 2.5 inch long piece of leather. If you are using a 3/4 inch strap like I am, if you're gonna be using an inch strap, you're gonna need about a 3 inch piece of leather. So 3 inch piece, or in this case, I'm making a 3/4 inch strap. So this piece needs to be 2.5 inches long, and then I cut it about a 1/2 inch wide. So we're gonna cut this. This one did not come out straight. This is why I like the acrylic ruler. I can really see my measurements better. Everyone talks about cork-backed rulers, and I think they're great. They don't slide, but I like being able to see the leather through the plastic. Anyway, so now you have this piece of leather. So what you're gonna do is you're going to grab your 2-pronged stitching chisel, and you're gonna punch 2 holes on either end. Okay, and then you're gonna grab some thread. You don't need very much at all. I tend to probably use way more than I should here because you need to be able to maneuver your needles. So you shouldn't need a ton for only 2 stitches, but your needles actually end up inhibiting you. So I definitely tend to go overboard. So I put in the needle in one end, and then on the opposite end, hole that I punched if I went all the way through. There we go. So now you kind of have this look here, and I pulled the needle through. My needle feels like being stubborn today and doesn't want to come through the hole. There you go. Okay, so now that you've got this, you're going to actually, and you're going to basically pinch them together. From here, this is just the way I have done it. I never really watched anyone else do it. This is just how I've done it. Maybe there's a more efficient way. I then now go back and I crisscross the two onto the other side. And I pull them through. Okay. So now you've got this kind of crisscross pattern forming here. Then from there, I take the needle, go straight. On this one, I go directly across. I don't crisscross it underneath. Go straight across, go back through the hole. I do that on both sides. Okay, and then I crisscross again from there. Okay, so now you've got this little belt loop piece. I may not have put enough here. No, I'm okay. I usually try to do at least 3 crisscrosses. Sometimes I do more, but it's not a weight-bearing loop at all. So I find that you just want to stay together. So it's not going to get tugged per se. I messed that one up. Okay. All right. So from here, now you've got a little belt loop there. I messed those both up and did them backwards on the back side. So then I just snip the wax thread, grab my lighter and just melt the edges under and like smush them down. And then you got your little belt loop piece. So we're going to set that aside. That'll come back later, and we're going to continue working on the main part of the straps. So you're going to pull out your shorter of the 2 straps that we cut first thing. Okay, and I shouldn't have moved my pound board. You're going to need your pound board still. Okay, so from here you now have your strap, your 24-inch one, the shorter of the 2. So flip it over, and then I typically line it up, and I go about 4 inches to 3 inches down. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go about 4 inches down, and I fold it at the 4 inches, creating this section here, and then I kind of fold it in half. Okay, so right here is where the buckle is going to go, in this spot. So from here, I now have a marker. You can see here the leather kind of discolored a little bit right there. And in this case, I'm going to use this punch strap that I have that creates a... The other option would be to punch a hole where you want your strap about 3/4 of an inch apart from each other, like that. I'm showing you on the scrap leather. And then you would slice with an X-Acto knife between the 2. This is the way, the easier, or not the easier way, but this is the other way to do it. That one is really sloppy. So then you want to put that in the center of your thing. I've gotten really good at eyeballing this. If you're not good at eyeballing it, you're going to want to make a mark in the middle. For a 3/4 inch strap, it's at 3/8 of an inch in. So I'm going to center this here, punch the hole, and there's our punch. Now from here, I like to clean up the stuff that's scattered. Grab my buckle, and you're going to want to, so here's your buckle. This is the part that's going to be hidden, and this is your main strap. You're going to want your buckle to look like this, where the top of the buckle, where it connects, is facing away. And you're going to want to loop this around the center bar. This is called a center bar buckle. I always use these for straps. So I come through, pull that back, and then run that through. Okay, so it should look like this now at this point. All right, so there's your buckle. Now from here, what I usually do is I usually set the buckle hanging off the side of my pound board here, and then I will punch with this style punch right just below where this ends. And I just make sure everything's really lined up. Okay, so from here, I'm gonna grab a rivet. I'm gonna pop the rivet through here. Oh, that one didn't go all the way through. If you don't go all the way through like I did, you should be able to see the marks. You can readjust it. Okay, so from here, you're going to run a rivet through and put the back side on till it kind of snaps into place. Now remember, these are not truly set. You need to get your snap, either the type to hand, blah, blah, blah. You either need to get your snap tools or a hand press to press this in, but we're not going to do that quite yet. So from here, we're now going to take our little loopy guy that we made and string it on. And you're going to open up this and tuck that in between in this bigger gap we created. And then same thing. I usually try to punch this one actually on the back side to make sure that I go through both pieces and don't accidentally like punch the hole here. So I'm going to put that there. And that didn't go through again. Okay. And then I'm going to put the other rivet in. Okay, so that's how you're going to do that. Now, if you don't have a hand press like I do, you can use hand tools. So this little guy down and one of these flat rivet handled. These probably have a name. If I find them, I will post it. And you would just hold it down and hammer it down. So I did the one here. I'm going to go use my hand press for the other one. If you would like to see a better tutorial on how to connect snaps, I'm going to link another YouTube video from another creator for that called Country Cow Designs. They did a really fabulous tutorial on the different ways to connect snaps and rivets. They're going to do a better job than I ever will, so I'm going to refer you to their video if you would like a little more in-depth learning about assembling rivets and snaps. So go check that video out. So for now, this part is done. We're going to set it aside. We only have one more thing to do with this, so we'll set this aside. The next thing we need to do with this one is this piece is the one that's going to have the holes in it. So what I usually do, so I lay this out, and then again, this is why I love acrylic rulers more than the metal ones. I can see through my piece. So here, I can line up this whole thing right at the 3/4 inch, or I'm sorry, halfway of 3/4 inch was 3/8. I know where that is on my ruler, and I can physically see it lined up, okay? I tend to do my buckle holes about 1 inch apart, starting at the first one, and then you don't want to punch them yet. I just tentatively mark them. So, and I tend to go up a whole foot. And you might be like, those don't look even. They're not centered. And that's true, they're not. But, so now that they're rough centered, I can go through with my punch, or you can use your rotary punch, and mine is set to the wrong size, a little smaller. You're going to go through and you can then make sure you're centered, and you can punch your holes like that. I prefer, when doing buckle holes, to use this style. I just feel like it's a little faster, so I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll come back and finish this project up. All right, so now all of these holes are done. So here you can see I can buckle that in, And from here, your strap is basically done. From here now, you need to decide how you want to attach it to your bag. So depending on the bag's purpose or the style, will determine how I go from here. If it is a bag, for example, this bag here is my camera bag that I made, and it's got this nice little top handle on it. For this bag, I don't necessarily always want the crossbody on it. I may want to hold it like this, and I wanted one that was removable. So I put D-rings on the side and made it so I could attach these swivel snaps to the bag and remove it as needed. So that's one way. So if the bag is like a handbag that you want a crossbody option, then a swivel snap is the way to go. If the bag is just always a crossbody bag, then you can attach your strap here. If you were to do it to this one, you can attach it directly to here in the same way I'm going to show you with the swivel snaps here in a minute, and then it's permanently on there. So those are your two ways to attach them. I'm going to show you with swivel snaps because this is going on a bag that's also a handbag. So I'm using these swivel snaps today. So what I typically do is I tend to fold this at about 1.5 inches. I know I'm eyeballing that, but I've done it so much I can, yeah, I guess that's 1.75 inches, about 1.75 inches. So I do this at about 1.75 inches, and before I attach the swivel snap, I will make my first punch. I tend to just kind of make sure, I try to make sure it's just even and just kind of hold it there. There's one, and then I try to make them about 1 inch apart. If you want to be extra meticulous, you can measure all those out. I've just done so many. I've gotten very good at eyeballing it. So then you're going to throw your swivel snap on like that, and you're going to run your rivets through. And then you're going to want to set these rivets like that. So I'm going to go set these, and then I'll be back when they're both done and we'll finish this up. So there is your completed strap. Now you can attach it to anything that you want. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found this informative. If you did, go ahead and comment below. Also, please comment below if there's any other information you'd like or anything else you would like to learn. I'm always open to trying to teach you new things that maybe you'd like to see. So please leave those comments below, and I'll see you next time.